questionable coaches.
Yeah.
There are no questions anymore at Old Trafford in terms of will he, won't he. The news came in, Chuck, that Erik ten Hag was sacked. And I mean, I think we can both agree that it was about damn time, right?
Yep.
My question then is the new coach who comes in, whether it's Amorim or whoever else, what are they coming into? Like, where are we with Manchester United post Ten Hag getting sacked right now?
Man, you know what? It seemed, right? Man United looks like a place right now where, regardless of whichever manager you hire, they're going to not perform to their potential. Regardless of which player you sign, they're not going to play as good as they were from the team that you signed them from. But I think with Ten Hag specifically, it got to a point where we were spiraling to a point where you're like, but you're not even helping your own cause because you're not playing this particular player for as long as you're persistent with Anthony. And you're like, but Amad Diallo is there as an option, but he's not playing. Casemiro has been relegated and now you've signed Ugarte, but Ugarte is not playing. And then after having drawn 2 consecutive games in the Europa, you're like, you know what, I know. Let me play Mazraoui in the 10.
Mazraoui was playing as a 10. Mazraoui was playing as a 10.
Where you've got Christian Eriksen on the pitch. That's what I'm saying. Sometimes you're like, but you're not helping yourself. And then you're like, okay, I know as well. Let me extend Johnny Evans' contract. So there are things where you're like, this is not a Man United or a hoodoo hierarchy culture system. This guy's just not making the right decisions. And when you look at Man United being in 13th or 14th, wherever we are now, you're like, no, it can't continue this way. And then when you have the chance to speak in the media, he says, he does not count the game against Tottenham because there was a red card and then they apologized, but they can't get that game back. He's like, how do you not count it? We didn't get 3 points.
The media of making up fairy tales.
So there was an era or an aura of delusion about the man at some point in terms of, hey, the house is on fire, Erik. It's not just in the bedroom. Everything is engulfed. Get everyone out. Get the kids out. Make sure everyone's safe. But it did not strike me as that kind of figure. And maybe you need to be cool and calm under pressure, but the moves he was making, man, I think they were quite questionable. But what I will agree on, right, is what Jamie Carragher says, that if there was a time to fire him, it would have been at the beginning of the season, because you don't give the guy money and say, okay, buy the players you want and then fire him. Because now what are we going to do with De Ligt and Xerxes and whoever that he prefers to have? So that's crazy. But to answer your question originally, Jay, I think what Ines have tried to do is give stability. And I think with them having fixed out the hierarchy in terms of director of football and the people who are recruiting and people who are organizing everything above the manager, he should come into a settled situation. And I think right now it's plain. The only direction is up because you're 14th, right? But I think at this point in time, you are now setting the gauntlet not only for the manager but for the players as well. That we are Man United and this is our standard. This is what we want to do. Here's what we want to achieve. So if you're Amorim or someone else, I think you are someone who comes into a high pressure situation, but there's ambition as well. I think there'll be support as well, and I think there has to be patience as well. So I think it's a clean slate. Do it as best as you can. If you can qualify further with what you have in the Europa, great. If you can finish in the top half, or let's say in a European place at the end of the season, great. But it's almost like a free shot because we started badly and the players have not given us too much.
Yeah, the time for Ten Hag to leave was after the FA Cup final, and you can see that there's new ownership, right? With Ineos, because once upon a time, Louis van Gaal won the FA Cup final and he was fired.
Yeah.
So maybe that one is a decision that should have been taken out of their hands and given back to the Glazers, because they know when it's time. And when they've decided, it's like, doesn't matter what you do. Like, thank you.
Yeah.
But there's the door, because that is a relevant question that you asked. That now that you've gone and you signed this manager's players again, and now this manager is gone, what do you do then? And for example, if Amorim is the one who comes in, now this team has to transform into a back three. That's a whole different system that you have to adjust to. And do Manchester United have the personnel to be able to play that way? Whereas if you get him in June, July, you can get those players and you can get them playing in the system. So what the new manager is coming into for me is chaos. Because, I was thinking about this. When the chat of Ten Hag out started, right? I thought to myself, it's so crazy to me how the last decade we have been here each and every time with each and every single Manchester United manager that has followed Sir Alex. And Chuck, every team goes through a banter period, All right, this happens like especially when you've had like the greatest manager in the club's history or a great manager, one of the better ones in the club's history. It tends to take a dip afterwards, but there is a recovery period, even if it's not quite the absolute best. Where like, and they're not even just results in terms of the fans loving the manager. If you think about Liverpool, for example, like Liverpool since the 80s have been terrible and they've been recycling through managers. But then they had a Rafa Benitez, won the Champions League, and they loved Rafa. And then that, petered out. And then you eventually come into Brendan Rodgers. And that season with Sturridge as well as Luis Suarez going berserk, they love him, and it's there's a good feeling around the club. That hasn't happened with Manchester United. Yes, you have a Jose Mourinho who won those trophies. I did mention Van Gaal, who also won silverware, right? But you guys have never loved any of these managers. It's always like, so sideways passing. The football is boring, and we want to play more attacking football. And then with Oli, it's like, okay, Oli got us the results in Paris, but then is he really the guy? He doesn't seem like the guy. And then Ten Hag came in, and immediately it's like, well, this man cannot play any sort of block. Like guys are just running through our midfield, and there's no love. There's no period where, oh man, we are convinced even for a little while before it goes haywire again. Like then you get to a point where okay, we don't want this manager. Think about Arsenal. Arsenal post Wenger, there was Emery, and that was just Emery, right? Where okay, good evening, please, good evening and goodbye. Arteta comes, and initially there's the feeling maybe Arteta, who then finishes 8th again, is not quite the guy. But now Arsenal fans are in love with Arteta. As I'm saying, consistently with the United and the coaches and the fans. Like there hasn't been anyone who's come in and like there's a period of settling where we love this guy. This is my manager. This is our guy.
It's a high pressure situation because someone like Ten Hag, we loved him the first season because Casemiro is playing with Eriksen and Bruno. We found our midfield and we're vying for the title race and we've won the Carling Cup. Great. But then second season is like, my guy, what are you doing? Because I think the stakes are high. No one is scrutinized. No one's in the media as much as Man United. And so if you're not performing and then you're going to give us a wide open midfield where we're getting to finish with a minus goal difference, then we're like, guy, we loved you the first season, but what are you doing now, So I think he had an entire campaign to fix that and he didn't. So with him, I got an excuse. Maybe with the others.
It's why the next hire, Manchester United have to absolutely get it right.